Before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you about something I am genuinely excited about. My Practice Accelerator is open for registration right now. It just opened yesterday, and it is a membership community that I built for attorneys, mediators, dispute resolution professionals, and entrepreneurial professionals who are ready to stop building their practices alone. Every month, I'm going to have one live working session with me. There will also be twice monthly office hours where everyone can come and as many questions as I can answer or we as a community can talk about, we will. And then importantly, there's a private community of colleagues where I will also be and that you can ask questions and talk to those who actually get what you're building. One thing I know is we often will learn as much from the community as I could ever share. I do want you to know that there are founding member spots available right now. They are locked in for life at $79 per month, but there are only 50 and they're going fast. So go to susaneguthrie.com, my website, and click on the green accelerator button in the upper right-hand corner. If you decide you want to pre-register, it starts on June 1st, but you can pre-register now. Use code PPP for Practice Playbook Podcast at checkout, and you'll get an extra $10 off. That's susaneguthrie.com. Click accelerator, use code PPP. And now let's get into today's episode. It's a really good one. Today's legal and dispute resolution professionals are caught in a strange place when it comes to AI. On the one side, there is endless hype. And on the other, there's fear. And somewhere in the middle are the lawyers, mediators, arbitrators, and other professionals trying to figure out what actually matters, what actually works, and how to move forward without getting left behind. Because whether you are running a law firm, building a mediation practice, managing complex cases, or serving clients as a neutral, AI is already beginning to reshape how professional services are delivered. And that's why today's episode matters. I am joined by two of the people helping shape one of the most practical and forward-looking conversations happening right now around AI in professional practice. We are going inside the imminent AI and the Practice of Law Summit to talk about what professionals really need to understand about AI right now, from real-world implementation and ethics to billing, workflows, AI agents, and the future of client service itself. And what I appreciated most about this conversation is that it is not fear-based and it is not hype-based. It is grounded in reality, practicality, and the actual day-to-day challenges professionals are facing right now. So whether you're already experimenting with AI tools, still trying to figure out where to begin, or simply wondering what all of this means for the future of your practice, this episode is for you. Welcome to the Practice Playbook Podcast, your go-to resource for legal professionals, mediators, and entrepreneurial experts building modern, profitable, and purpose-driven businesses. I'm your host, Susan Guthrie, attorney, mediator, and #1 best-selling author with over 35 years of experience. I'm a former chair of the ABA section of dispute resolution, and I've helped thousands of professionals build practices they love through my books, coaching, and training programs. Each week, I'll bring you real-world strategies, mindset shifts, and behind-the-scenes insights to help you grow with clarity, confidence, and impact. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Practice Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Susan Guthrie, and today we are diving into one of the most important conversations happening right now for lawyers, mediators, arbitrators, and other service professionals. The real state of AI in practice and what professionals need to know to stay competent, competitive, and future ready. Joining me today are two leaders at the forefront of that conversation through the upcoming AI and the Practice of Law Summit, which is hosted by the American Bar Association. First up, we have Joey Joseph Gartner, Director and Counsel at the ABA Center for Innovation and former staff counsel to the ABA Task Force on Law and Artificial Intelligence. Joey focuses on helping professionals develop the skills needed for the modern practice environment, including technology competence, innovation, and thoughtful adoption of AI and emerging tools. We're also joined by Deian McBryde, a New Mexico litigator, appellate attorney, mediator, settlement facilitator, and member of the governing board of the ABA Center for Innovation. Deian brings uniquely grounded and human-centered perspective to innovation, drawing on a diverse background in business consulting, technology, adult learning, and the arts before entering the legal profession. Together, they are helping lead a conversation that moves beyond fear and beyond theory to focus on practical, actionable ways professionals can thoughtfully integrate AI into their practices right now. So let's get into it. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited that you're both here to talk about this upcoming summit.
Thank you so much for having us. Nice to be here.
This is, I have to tell you, we were just talking about this, but I'm very excited about your upcoming AI summit. And I go to a lot of AI related content. There's always something new to learn. It's such a fast moving technology. And I had been telling Joey when he and I first met how disappointed I was that I wasn't going to be able to attend the summit because we have a happy family occasion going on and couldn't miss a wedding for an AI summit. And thankfully, listeners, here's your first tip. It's recorded and we'll get copies of the recording. So go ahead and sign up, even if you can't be there. The other big bonus is it's virtual. So no travel involved, even though it's coming up shortly. Let's dive into talking about it because I think that this summit, I'll say at a high level, looking through the agenda, what excited me is I think you've done an amazing job of making sure that in 2 days, there's something for everyone. It really does not matter where you are on the AI spectrum, we'll call it. You can come to the summit and walk away with something valuable. And I'm assuming that was something that was part of your planning process. Deian, you're the chair of the planning committee, so maybe you can tell us how you curated the programming.
All kudos to Joey for putting lots of things together. I think if myself and some of the other committee members, our big impact, I think, has been we're all busy attorneys and we don't work at the ABA, and we have Joey here as this amazing resource to help pull things together. So Joey made it possible for all of us to give out as many ideas as possible. And Joey gave us really full permission to just toss out ideas, to take names, ideas for subjects. And early on, I think 3 years ago, Joey and I kind of consciously decided to steer the direction of the very first summit toward something that would be very useful for people on a hands-on level. And we weren't quite sure how to do it. You know, Susan, to your point, I've also been to a lot of AI trainings, right? And I just, for so long have gone, I feel so frustrated. It's as if I'm going to a Dungeons and Dragons convention or something. They're just talking so far above my head. I don't know what the words mean. I don't know how to put it together. I'm not nerd enough to make it work. And for a long time, I think so many of the training sessions that were being delivered, and might still be today, they were just lots of doom and gloom. It's going to be terrible. Don't, just be careful. There's this one case in New York. I mean, it was like those poor guys in New York.
There we go.
I mean, how horrible to have to be the Neil Armstrong of bad AI cases, right?
Yeah.
So every training I went to was that. It was this is coming. It's coming for your jobs. You're probably going to do it really badly, right? But it's coming. So anyway, and you've got a duty of competence. So get with the program. So I think when you put all of that stuff together into a blender, it's very confusing. And people were signing up for lots of classes and lots of training, trying to get a handle on it. And what I felt very strongly people were coming away with was a feeling of dread as opposed to a feeling of hope. So 3 years ago, Joey and I had some conversations. We kind of sidebarred a little bit. Sorry to anybody who was on the committee that year, but we really said we want to move this in the direction of making this very hands-on, very useful, full of information. At the time, the Center for Innovation was really focused on collaborating more with solos and small firms. So we were interested in that point of view. And so we had our first summit 3 years ago. And, we made a few mistakes, but we had a great time. I had a great time. It went on forever. It was 2 full days. It was 16 hours of programming. I was the celebrity host. I didn't know what we were talking about half the time where everything was going on. But we got it out there, we put it out there. And I think putting that much content out there gave Joey and his team a chance to really assess how it went, what worked well, what landed well. Then we saw, I think, a little more development last year of the content that played a little bit more with delivering information and playing hands-on. And Joey would frequently at ABA meetings, Joey will have a series of labs for people to try things out. And then I just really I'm with you, Susan. Like, I love this program that we're having this year. Joey, I think, has put together a great group of speakers, an amazing group of content. And it is something, there's a little AI 101, but there's also a little 201 and a little 301 for people. I think you can come and take some things. This is our hope. You'll be able to come and take some things away that you'll be able to apply that day.
Right. That's what most AI programs are missing. I'll be honest. I'll be blunt about it. And so that's what I was so excited to see. In fact, I emailed, because people email me all the time, "Hey, Susan, where can I go get some AI 101, or where can I get this or that?" And I've been emailing it to people like, here you can, here, this is going to get you started. And Joey, I think it's, you were the one who sort of was, it sounds like, the driving force behind this. I have to say, right behind you is a banner that 3 years ago, right after ChatGPT dropped out of the sky on November 20th, right, 2022, we were all in, where were we? Where was that?
Denver. That was
Denver's
Denver.
mid-year. Yep. Denver's mid-year. And I remember seeing that banner, and I took a picture of it. And for at least a year and a half, the picture of that banner was one of the opening slides in all my AI programs. Can you read it to everybody?
Sure. So I'm going to have to, I mostly have it for memory, so I'll see if I can do it. Artificial intelligence won't replace lawyers anytime soon. Lawyers who use AI will replace lawyers who don't use AI. And I will say the Center for Innovation really leaned into the artificial intelligence conversation right after the ChatGPT boom. We did our first convening of our council members and industry leaders in as early as February of 23. And the thought behind that was, this has such broad implications. We don't even know where to start. And so we have to start figuring out what those pieces are, what they look like. And this statement, as you'll recall, back in 2023 was a little absurdist. And now when we think about it, the use of AI tools has become so ubiquitous that now it's almost taken for granted that we've reached a point where AI is fundamentally, in a lot of ways, baked into how a lot of lawyers practice. And if you're not using it, my sense from the people we talk to about this is there's a lot of questions about, how do I get there, right? And so when we talk about, and Deian's pointed out, we are on year 3 of this summit, and year 1, we boiled the ocean for 2 days, didn't we? We really tried to pack in as much content as possible. But what we found from that was that the things that were most useful to people were practical and actionable. Meaning you were leaving the event with something to not only understand that applied to you, but it was something that you could actually think about, how do I deploy this? So we moved away from the idea of doing, deep theoretical policy debates. There are plenty of places within the association where those conversations are happening. But what we viewed it for, really, and Deian's pointed out, we also, at that time, and still to this day, really wanted to figure out, how do we help solo and mid-sized firms thrive in the innovation space, because That's not where there's an innovation budget. That's not where you're sitting with the chief innovation officer. And so from our perspective, that's an area where resources are really needed and really important. And so all of that was kind of combined into what I'll say this year, if you look at our summit agenda, everything is really about take action now. Don't wait anymore. It's been, we're on year 3 of preaching this. And so we've got our real world use cases. We've got our conversations about intelligent law firms and what that might mean for your billing structure, value-based billing, content-based, all these other different pieces, right? Along with a lot of sessions led by some of our Center for Innovation Council members, just about AI adoption and AI implementation and building out your own personal roadmap, right? And so what we really want for the summit is that you're leaving with homework. Now, it's not graded homework. We're not asking you to turn it in, but we want you to actually leave with actionable things that you feel like are going to have meaningful impact and that you can play with and start thinking about. And that to us is kind of the crux of how we built out the content for this year. We had multiple committee meetings where we talked about 101, 201, 301 tracks, making sure that, yes, we want to get that entry level stuff. But by year 3, we have a little bit of an expectation that we want people to leave with more than definitions and understandings. That's not the goal anymore, right?
Right. Well, and not scaring them. I think what
Yeah.
Deian said is so spot on. In fact, I participated on some of those panels in the early days talking about, because it is important, right? We are ethical professionals. We have codes of ethics we need to abide by. And so being aware of the challenges that this technology brings is an important part of learning how to use it properly. It's the same as when we adopted Zoom and its friends, during the pandemic. There were a lot of things that could and did go wrong when you go to an online forum. And we learned and came up with strategies and protocols to deal with it. And what I've been trying to tell people all along is this is the same thing. You need to know what the challenges are, because that's what then tells you what strategies and protocols you need to come up with.
Well, and Susan, I will also say, even our ethics session this year is all about acquisition of tools. So our ethics session, our ethics roundup this year is actually looking about, okay, what are the terms of service you need to understand? What are the things you're agreeing to? So we don't even want our ethics conversations to be those large scale kind of broad conversations in the past. We even want those to really be about, and Deian and I have had this conversation before. Our committee talked about it extensively. The ethics question comes up on every AI panel you go to, right? The ethics piece is always baked into every conversation.
Yeah.
It is always there. But oftentimes what's lacking are the practical applications of what that means. So when we talk about understanding terms of service and understanding what you're agreeing to and understanding the contents of AI tool acquisition in context of Ethics Opinion 512, all of that, again, we still really need that to be actionable things that people are going to be able to walk away from with a real tangible understanding of what it means for them.
I want to jump into a couple of things. One is, Joey's banner is amazing, but you can also take the word AI and replace it with typewriter, email, or carbon paper or carbonless paper, and it would feel the same for so many people. I mean, there was a moment in any of these technologies, we're getting rid of Redwells, we're getting rid of whatever we're going to get rid of, and I think that moment of anxiety comes up. I have a very strange background that it includes all kinds of different work, including I owned a yoga studio at one point. And there was a yoga teacher who always said that the fundamental human question is, am I safe? Right. And I think when you approach a problem, when you approach a user-based problem, I also did organizational behavioral work in the private sector before becoming a lawyer. So when you're facing a user-based problem and you can appreciate that the user's fundamental question is, am I safe? And you can assuage that, you can create this feeling of, I don't know how safe you are, but I know this part is safe. Or we may not all be safe, but we are all in it together, that kind of a thing. So I think the development of this institute and the summit really has been moving from a lot of conversations that were not rooted in the user's safety, but to one that is. I mean, one of my personal brags, I haven't said this to Joey, but I'm very proud that our current agenda does not include the words tech stack at all. I feel really, really good about that. I think that's a pretty significant development, in how we've come this far. So I think that's just got to be the main approach. And I think the ethics thing is everybody needs an ethics credit. So that's why we're always, how do we talk about AI? We don't know how to talk about it in a practical setting, so we'll talk about it in an ethical setting. And so I think that did create a lot of the energy behind these bigger conversations, or these initial conversations about the panic, because we wanted to talk about AI, but we didn't have any real practical way to get a general credit for it. Right. And so the only way we get a credit for it was to get an ethics credit for it. And so we created ethics content. But now we're in a place where we really can have, solid general credit quality, substantive information that we can deliver to help people in their practice. And we have more interesting ethical dilemmas, because we're kind of past the should you or shouldn't you, and we're into the how should you and how shouldn't you.
Well, and how it's actually happening. Like, I love that the ethics credit is around acquisition, because guess where we are, people? We're at the acquisition stage, right? Like, I told clients over the past few years, the ones who were running out, like a lot of big firms did, right, to go get AI. We're going to spend $1 million and we're going to go get our own personal AI in the firm, our own closed system. 5% usage is the average for those who went out and spent all that money, because they bought something that no one knew how to use, that no one ever got trained on using, and they really were buying it, I think, as a marketing thing to say, hey, we have AI and it's a closed system, so we're safe. Now people are reaching out and they are like, okay, now's the time. Now we've used it, we're ChatGPT or Claude aficionados, but we want a system that we can use safely within our firm that meets the needs. Now they're seeing we're a transactional firm, we need a particular type of platform, versus we're a litigation firm, we need a different type of platform. Or are there those that do both? So the fact that you're focusing in ethically on what you need to be concerned about around the acquisition of the programming, brilliant, perfect, something that you'll be able to use immediately.
I was a young person in the 80s, right? So, I mean, I bought painter pants and I bought jelly shoes, and I probably had a headband or two that I probably don't talk about, right? But I also had a good old fashioned high top sneakers, right? So what has stood the test of time, right? Those high tops, I still wear those things, right? So our tailors are still going to be in my closet. They're going to still be in my wardrobe. So I think we've been waiting for a lot of that kind of shakeout. I mean, people were showing up saying, what you really need right now are these jelly shoes. I'm like, I'm not so sure. So I'm one of those people who said, I will happily give you a platform to talk about your jelly shoes, but I'm not 100% sure I'm ready to buy today.
I'm not up for your jelly shoes yet. Good thing you held off on the jelly shoes. I
did hold off a little bit.
Yeah.
They've come back in style. My 4-year-old has a pair right now.
So, Joey, what were you going to say?
Well, I also think that to both your points, we're at such a unique point in kind of the evolution of the marketplace of legal tech with AI tools right now, right? Because I think if you looked at a lot of legal tech a couple of years ago, it was very AI washing. We have AI, it does this, but there's a lot of questions over to the degree, the focus, what the actual tools were. Now we exist in such a diverse and unique legal tech ecosystem, especially around AI tools. And, obviously there is consolidation. There will be consolidation. That's part of the natural market flow. But there are tools kind of designed for almost every practice area and almost every function in your practice. And maybe those are the tools you need, maybe they're not. But what you do need is the framework to assess those tools, right? What you do need is to figure out, does this fit not only my ethical and my responsibility, but does it fit with my process? Does it fit with my workflow? And so a lot of the topics we talk about at the summit really intertwine all of that, right? Our billing conversation ties in on understanding your process and understanding your roadmaps for implementation. All of these things, when we talk about this, are really intertwined, tied up in a big bundle. And so we want those through lines to be obvious to all our attendees over the course of the couple of days as well.
Yeah. I know, the billing conversation is one that's starting to come up for people a lot in the real world, because they're seeing, I actually just had a client say it to me the other day, that they in their last partners meeting were talking about the fact that They are producing things in a shorter period of time because their internal AI is doing first drafts of things that used to take 3 hours. Now it's 20 minutes and so they're like, we are in a quandary about how to bill about that because our billing is going to go from normal down to a critical point. And that's why I think you're also talking about things like billing, that it's important for practitioners who are adopting and or encountering this technology to understand that it's not just what the AI can do for us. It's then the ripples outward of what those efficiencies and all of those different changes. It'll be in the court systems when the court systems move more quickly. So our cases are going to move more quickly, which may sound good, but may not be when you're planning on a case that usually takes a year or so or 2 years to get to litigation. Now it's fast tracked. So there's going to be a lot of change. And part of it is it's not a crystal ball anymore. We're starting to see. Now, I know you have one session, and I want to ask about this one in particular, the fact versus fiction section. So can you give us any teasers or any spoilers on what's fact, what's fiction?
Well, here's what I can say on fact versus fiction. Fact versus fiction is the only session that has stayed year 1, 2, and 3. And in the beginning, it was called, I think the first year we called it AI, Is It Ready for Prime Time, or some other a little more gimmicky name. But the whole sense of this session has always been...
This name is not gimmicky at all.
No, you went straight for, it didn't come off a Jeopardy,
Right. It's not. I'll take fact and fiction for 500, Alex. No, but what it really is designed for is so many people approach, especially if your experience with AI is what you read or what you hear or what your colleague says, approach it with a conversation of it can do everything or it can do nothing, right? And there's very little in between that many people have in those preformed opinions. And so fact versus fiction is all about talking about real limitations, right? So when we talk about the agentic tools, or when we talk about some of the speech to text intake tools that firms might be using now, what are the real limitations of those? Now, I will say, we're moving at a speed where 2 Novembers ago, I saw those tools demoed and I laughed and walked out of the room. And last November, I saw those tools demoed and thought, oh, that's pretty... I'm not sure I would say no to that, right? And so the technology is moving at such a pace as well that what might have been an impossibility 6 months ago might be closer than we think. But we really do want to talk about where those limitations do and don't exist. And that session is led by Center for Innovation Council member Tom Martin. Tom is the CEO of LawDroid, adjunct professor on AI at Suffolk, is deep in the intersectionality of delivery of legal services and AI. And so Tom has graciously done this session for us every year. And while we were putting it together, we said, okay, this is the one thing we know will be day 2, second session. We're leaving it there from year to year.
Well, it's one I'm very much looking forward to. I have to say that's an exciting topic to me. And it's always interesting. I didn't realize his background, Tom's background, but amazing. Dwight Golan is in our section, and he's been doing his own GPTs and all kinds of, AI. So now I see where he gets it. He must be working with his colleague there at Suffolk. Those guys have one of the great programs. That's one of the things that I talk about a lot when I'm out speaking on the topic is I think one of the places where I'd love to see more AI adoption is not just in practice, it's in our law schools, right? I think our educators need to incorporate AI right into the curriculum so that the students that they are helping to then put forth into the world that they're supposed to be able to go and get jobs will best support them by giving them some access to using these tools and in a setting where they have supervision and can learn how to do it correctly and still keep the critical thinking, the judgment, all the things that make the legal profession what it is. I do want to point out you have a very special price for law students for the summit. I think it's only $20.
Yes. So I will say we've always wanted to make sure that the summit is available to law students. We have a $30 price for law students. We offer that specifically because we want to make sure that this is not only a conversation about where our practitioners are, but where the future of the profession can start to think about it. We have been gifted at the center of having some really strong legal academics with individuals like April Dawson, who we've profiled before through some center projects, who have Dean of Innovation at North Carolina Central, who took the AIGP along with the class of students that she trained for the AIGP. So we love to see where this functionality is. But from our perspective, law students equally need to be part of this conversation because the academic implications, especially now, as I didn't think about this until we started working on our trends report this year. We now have law students, some of who have been to forward-thinking AI focused curriculum pieces, have been dealing with AI in their curriculum for their whole law school careers, and that's not something we could say in 2022 or 2023. So we think there's a lot of that conversation that we have to make sure we're being inclusive of those early career professionals and those law students because they're going to shape a lot of this.
Oh, I think I was funny. I was talking with some law school deans. I was doing a little chit chat with them. And one of the things that I said to them, they were all talking about the recent rankings that came out for law schools and Stanford now on top and others have moved around. And I said, in a couple of years, it's going to be, I suspect, the schools that will move up will be the ones who have really AI forward, well done programs. Not that the legal education part will go away. But I do think that that's now going to be a factor that is going to, sort of put its foot on the lever and weigh it down a little bit. And the look on those faces, I bet a few people went back to the drawing board on their AI adoption in training, or in school. But so let's talk about how you're moving. Okay, we've talked about the 101. We've talked about some of the basics here. You're also going all the way to the other end, or what will feel, I suspect, to a lot of colleagues as the other end of the spectrum with AI agents. You talked about agentic for a second there. I think, heads will explode in certain ways for some practitioners, but it is sort of where we're going. They're here. They're already here. They're already operating within law firms. What is this program centered around? What is we're not going back to the fear mongering, right? I think it's from a perspective of, and here's more exciting news.
Yeah, so this is a session that we have Pegeen Turner facilitating from Legal Technology, she's done so many things, but from Legal Cloud Technology. And so Pegeen's focus is really, it's a little bit built on, okay, you know the terms, you've probably read articles about agentic AI, but here are actual ways that it's being deployed. Here's ways where caution must be taken if you're thinking about deployment. These are areas where we're not quite there yet, right? And it's also a baseline understanding of, as these tools continue to adapt and grow, what are the things you need to be considering in terms of implementation, right? When I think about agentic AI, even from our own perspective, I have vibe coded a few things for my sons and with my kids over the last couple of years, and things that used to take a long time are now a matter of hours, days, right? And so if those technologies come into your law firm, that's about thinking about where they can be deployed, but also what do you do with your resources that frees up? And how do you deploy oversight in these situations, right? And so it's very much to Dean's overall perspective, we're not here to scare you about AI agents. What we are here to do is help you understand where the technology is, where it isn't, and where those cases exist for you in your kind of functionality.
Yeah, that's an important part because it goes back to the poster behind you, right? These things are here. If we've learned nothing else in the 3 years since you had that banner made, is the genie's not going back in the bottle. The technology is not going away. And to what you both have said here today, it is rapidly advancing. And many colleagues are at the point now where it is something that is integrated into their day, into their practice, into their workflow. And I think that will continue to speed up. I will say, I think one of the next conversations, and maybe this is something for next year's, although by next year, this will probably be obsolete. But I do think the next question goes to a little bit what you just were talking about with agentic tools and agents is the litigation that's going to be and is already being driven by AI. I think that is a conversation that not enough legal professionals are having because it represents opportunity. This is truly where we don't normally in practice get an opportunity to be first to market on topics that are coming to the forefront in law, right? I always ask colleagues, how many cases of first impression have you had in your career? And I've been at it for 35 years and I can say, one where there wasn't some case law. Well, now there's thousands of cases of first impression regarding AI driven litigation pending around the country and around the world. So that's I think the next opportunity. Hey, we're lawyers. How do we get on top of this? How do we start taking not advantage of the opportunity, but start serving our clients in that space when the problems come to roost for them, or we can help them avoid them.
I agree with all of that, and I guess I'd like to put in a good word though for anyone who's still a Luddite and who drives the horse and buggy. If I have a crystal ball, if I had one at all, I would say things I would love to see in the future. One is I think we're getting close to the point where we're going to have to break apart the word AI. Just like we can no longer just say, I love cars. We're going to talk about cars. Cars are coming. We're going to need a place for cars, right? Different. Sometimes we need a racetrack. Sometimes we need a country road, So I think we're coming to a place where the term AI is just going to have to break apart because we really are talking about individual tools. And again, I'm big into metaphor and analogy, but a hammer and a screwdriver, they're different tools. They're both tools, different jobs. So I think that's a thing that's coming. And then it's really easy. I sense a panic among some smaller practitioners who like their pace of work. There can be a parade passing by, and there's a lot of pressure to jump into that parade. So what I like about this content is I think it all, whether it's the what's working, what's not, the real world use cases, the agentic work, it really is about framing acquisition in a way that can be relevant to you. The important question for lawyers is not necessarily, I mean, maybe for some lawyers, not for this lawyer, but for some, it might be how much business can I get or how many opportunities can I say yes to? But for me, I'm using it to choose my opportunities more carefully. I want to craft the way of work that works best for me and what works best for me, right? To this question that people say they have billing questions. Well, the billing question is, can I still charge somebody an hour for something that took me 6 minutes to do? That's the billing question people have.
And we already know the answer.
And we already know the answer, right? But to Joey's Banner's point, I think that the future is going to reward those lawyers who embrace the word counselor at law, who fill that time with advice, who fill that time with creativity, who fill that time with interesting ways to capitalize on a new opportunity. Not the lawyers who find a way to work for 1 hour, but bill for 8. I just don't think I don't think the world's going to tolerate that. I think we have so many pressures coming on the legal community from the constant knocking at the door of equity ownership, which is all about managing costs down and managing creativity out, in my opinion. I think we're always facing that drumbeat, and the only way to counter that is through good mind, good legal thought, good legal reasoning. And so the hammer's not going to hammer the nail itself. It's going to be how you use it. And the hammer and the nail together don't get to decide what picture goes on the wall. That really needs the human being behind it. So I see us defining this word AI a little bit more. I see lawyers succeeding who can craft their practice in such a way that they get to manifest themselves as the lawyers that they want to be. And I think those are really important possibilities that I would love to see unfold for us.
Yeah, I love that. It's a wonderful vision of the future. So, Joey, I'll give you the last word. If people would like to take advantage of this wonderful opportunity to be a part of this year's summit, how do they find out about it? where can they get registered? I know registration is still open. And what are the dates and times?
So the registration is still open, and the registration will remain open until May 15th. So you've got about a little over a week and a half. You can go ahead to the Center for Innovation's website where you can find a link to registration. The summit is May 18th and May 19th, each afternoon, running from 1 to 5 Central Time. We will be also so if you sign up and you have to miss a session, not a big deal. I recognize, and Deian and I learned this in year one, asking lawyers to block out 2 days is a hard ask, right? We are, especially GP solos who are wearing all the hats in their firms and doing all those tasks. 2 days is a lot of time to ask them to take away. So we make all content available on demand after the event for up to a year. So you will be able to log on and visit it there and see it up to a year. So if you miss a session, not a big deal. All of that is available. I will also say that we have a 10% discount code running right now, Summit 10. So you are more than free to sign up with that as we are within our week. So if any of your listeners want to take advantage of that, we would encourage them to do so.
Yes, I just took advantage of it yesterday. I myself have signed up. I'm very excited. I'll be watching it, and my husband is actually, who has nothing to do with the law, but is also a little bit of an AI junkie, as I am. I was showing him the agenda. He's like, "Oh, I should watch that too." So that'll give us something to do the following weekend. Thank you so much. But gentlemen, this was such a wonderful conversation. I knew it would be, and I'm very excited to see the fruition of all your hard work and labor on this. I can tell it's a labor of love, and I'm already looking forward to season 4.
I want to give a little shout out just to Joey and his team, and also to everyone who's on our committee and who's on the Center for Innovation's governing board. It's just been a delight to work with all of these people and to have something really substantial to show for it.
I will second in that 2 years ago, Deian and I were kind of given a blank slate to figure out what to do with this summit and how do we build appeal. And so we are deeply grateful to our governing council for the last 2 years, who has helped guide us and inspire us and driven us to really hone in on our audience. So.
Well, it sounds like they had the right idea and they backed the right horses, as they like to say. So we just had the Kentucky Derby. So can't wait, gentlemen. It really looks like an amazing program. Everybody out there, go sign up, get your ticket, whether you can be there or not. I will, as always, put all of the links in the show notes. So I'll make it as easy as possible for you all. And although I won't see you there, we can talk about some of the topics later on. Maybe I'll see if some of the panelists can come on the show and share some more with us. So both of you, again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
And there you have it. So many important insights and practical takeaways from today's conversations. Here are a few of my biggest golden nuggets from this episode. First, AI is no longer a future conversation for legal and dispute resolution professionals. It is already impacting how we work, how we serve clients, and how practices operate. Second, the conversation is finally shifting away from fear and hype toward practical implementation. Not should I use AI, but how do I use it thoughtfully, ethically, and strategically? Third, one of the most important themes from today's discussion is that the professionals who will thrive are not necessarily the ones who automate everything. They are the ones who use technology to elevate the uniquely human side of their work, things like judgment, creativity, strategy, counseling, and client connection. And finally, I really appreciated the focus on actionable learning. You all know, if you've taken one of my programs, that's a hallmark that I insist on. This summit is designed to leave attendees with real tools, real frameworks, and real next steps they can actually apply in practice right away. Now, if today's conversation sparked your interest, the AI and Practice of Law Summit is happening virtually May 18th and 19th through the American Bar Association. You can find the link to register in the show notes. Remember, the program is fully virtual and all sessions will be available on demand afterward, which honestly was the deciding factor for me because I know I can't attend live. But I absolutely registered so I can access all of the content afterward. Registration is very reasonably priced, and there's also a discount code available. Use the code SUMMIT10, all one word, for 10% off registration. Again, all in the links, all the information's there for you. As always, thank you to my two guests, Joey and Deian. You guys were amazing. I really can't wait to see you, hear you, and see the fruition of all your hard work in the summit. Thank you all so much for joining us here on the Practice Playbook Podcast. Until next time, keep building the practice and the professional life you truly want. Thanks so much for listening to the Practice Playbook Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love it if you'd take a moment to leave a review, follow the show, or share it with a colleague who's ready to build the practice of their dreams. If you want more support and tools like the ones you heard today, join the waitlist for the Practice Accelerator, my brand new subscription program packed with resources to help you grow smarter. You can find the link in the show notes or visit susaneguthrie.com to learn more. Until next time, stay focused, stay intentional, and remember, success starts with the right playbook.